It's about that time, a little Peacock and Aponte Q&A talking San Francisco 49ers as we have a little lull getting ready for camp. No shortage of storylines. Brandon Ayuk, the holdout, getting a little silly with social media as things tend to get. Idle hands do the devil's work, Aponte. So let's get into all those subjects and a whole lot more. Best in the West QB division coming up on this edition of Peacock and Aponte. Yeah, all right, here we go now. A little jam. I like this little jam here. We're trying to find some non-copyright music to go with a podcast here. My old one got hit. It was a song I used to play a lot when we used to use our podcast opens. Not working now, so we're gonna change it up, change up the vibe a little bit, a little smoother vibe today as we start this episode of Peacock and Aponte and Peacock. We're at home at Team Peacock today. So we're going to call it Peacock and Aponte. We're talking about the San Francisco 49ers. At BD Peacock is where you can find me, of course, doing Locked On 49ers daily on the Locked On Podcast Network as well. But we're going overtime here, OT with BP and Jason Aponte at Jason Aponte 2103. All of his work you can find everywhere on the internet because my man is busy, multiple podcasts. He's writing about the San Francisco 49ers. Ponte, how are you holding up this summer? I see you rocking the guns, so the sun must be out over there on the Eastern time zone.
Yeah, it's just hot out here, man. It's just really hot all of a sudden. And like I was telling you about like the divide of like what's hot in Cali. No, it's just hot here now. It's pool weather right now, June 19th, getting in the 90s. It's gonna be in the high 90s this entire week. Just trying to beat the heat while, putting on a little bit of, I'm a little bit of a jersey enthusiast as well too. So I had to pull something out the closet.
Well, look, you get the drier heat in California, and I was just visiting some folks in the Central Valley of California back home for Father's Day, and man, 100 degrees down there, and it's not a lot of fun. The first time I ever traveled to the East Coast, I went to Dulles Airport in DC, and it was summertime, visiting a buddy, and the auto doors when you're walking out, I got my luggage walking out of the airport, the doors open up, and I was hit with a brick wall of the worst weather I could ever imagine into my face. I actually turned around and walked back into the airport, and I was like, what was that humidity that just smacked me in the face? I'd never felt it, and I didn't really understand it until traveling out there. So it's a different kind of heat over there. 90 with that humidity, I'd probably rather hang out in 100 over here in California.
That's the thing too, is over here it's like 92 with humidity. So we're just burning the air conditioner all day, all night. Like I have to sleep in cold. Like I cannot be anywhere near heat. Otherwise, I'm just gonna be tossing and turning. But yeah, it's where we're at. It's the summer, and it's the sign of football actually on the horizon, actual football, not hypothetical football and not football topics that don't have to do with football.
And it wouldn't be summer with the San Francisco 49ers if there wasn't some kind of a contract negotiation that has not been settled yet. And Brandon Ayuk obviously holding out from OTAs and mini camps, and no doubt will hold out into training camp, at least the beginning of training camp, if he doesn't have his new long-term deal signed and delivered by then. June 19th as we record this. Jason, what is your level of worry about Brandon Ayuk and seeing him say things on social media like, they don't want me back, to his old college quarterback who is now NFL quarterback, and maybe a little staged? Some people point out he doesn't look super upset by it, but clearly he's not happy enough with the contract offer from the 49ers to have signed a contract. So that's where we're at right now. 5th-year option is still the place we are with Brandon Ayuk as we get into late June here, still over a month before training camp.
I'm not worried still. And that video is 100% completely staged. Everyone knows on social media when you see a video where you see something crazy happen and you're wondering why was the video, here being placed. Him being on the phone with Jaden Daniels, ASU, they had the connection, all that stuff. It was much more trolling, much more joking. Didn't change my mind any bit. I think we're getting closer and closer to the place where the 49ers usually get these things done. you obviously don't want to lean on history, but there's a strong enough history that you can point back to that and say this is usually when things get done. But I think that they're a few millions away and probably structure away, right? And again, if it sounds like it'll be closer and closer as we get there, and they'll find a middle ground. So yeah, I'm not as worried. But that video couldn't have been more staged.
I don't really know what is trying to be accomplished if it is staged. Uh, are the 49ers going to get pressured by any of that? So I think it's just boredom, to be honest with you. So I think it's boredom from us, the content creators, the journalists, the folks that cover the 49ers, the media as it is, the national media especially. Then you get teams like the Steelers and other squads that are like, they want any story that says, oh man, we might be able to trade for a star wide receiver because right now we could use one. And so other teams get swooped up in it. So, those local reporters want to be involved in stories like that. Brandon Ayuk himself is probably bored. And so, the agent and Parag are the guys who are busy. And it's, I guess they're the ones we haven't heard from. So, and we've even heard from Brandon Ayuk's agent, Ryan Williams, Athletes First, and he has tweeted out a couple of times squashing some of those rumors about the Steelers possibly being super interested, going hard, trying to trade for Brandon Ayuk. So really, it's just situation normal for the 49ers to me. And I spoke about it earlier this week on Locked On 49ers when that video came out, and it's like, look, I can see why some fans would be like, oh man, give him everything, get him signed. And some fans would be like, be quiet, BA. You're talking about the team doesn't want you and they're offering you $26 million reportedly. And you know how much it costs? It feels like it costs $26 million to take your family to the football game, So right. The average fan probably says, okay, miss me with that. And I don't know what good can really come from the social media side of things and putting stuff like that out there. I don't think it's going to get Brandon Ayuk any money. I just think we're all bored pretty much with the situation and want to see some kind of football related story. And this is the biggest thing we got right now.
And I seem to remember during Deebo Samuel's contract negotiation that there was a video of him in a club where they said Deebo's coming back with a sign and he goes, no. And I'm like, come on. Like, I think, again, it's cookie cutter and it's starting to become, I think that's the frustration is that it's becoming cookie cutter. You unfollow the team, you take all your pictures down, you put up some cryptic story on your Instagram or something like that.
The agent requests a trade. There's got to be some trade rumors in there because you want to get other teams involved because it gives your guy more value if another team can offer something for your guy. So it's part of the playbook now. And once the story gets stale, by the way, got a question here from Iceman. The grade for X-Men 97.
A+.
Gotta have a good storyline. I have no idea. I figured this question was for you because I have no idea how to answer that one.
A+, absolute A+. Okay. Fine holiday fun. I can't believe that they went back to the well with that one and they did so well. But I think a lot of the frustration is you've seen this play out so many times. You watch it happen and you're just like, oh, this again. Why can't we have one off season without it? And then the real frustration should come to this is kind of the norm when it comes to contract negotiations. They're going to play out a little bit more in the public eye than ever. They're going to be using social media as a leverage or so they think, or putting fans in a place where #PayBA and I think a lot of people believe that the front office is going to see that and say, oh my God, we have to. And they're just like, we'll see him in another week when we come back in here and we get this done. I don't think John Lynch, despite some of his social media mishaps, or Kyle Shanahan or Parag are on their phones scrolling through Brandon Ayuk's tweets or any of our tweets trying to figure out what's going on with the situation. I think they have a far better grasp than anybody would give them credit for.
And as I've said before, look, Kittle, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Deebo Samuel, none of them were signed. None of them were signed in June. So, yeah, it doesn't get it hurt the 49ers last year that Nick Bosa was signed so late. And Nick Bosa admitted it. It took him a while. It took him mid-season to get mid-season form instead of being ready to go to start the year. You don't want a player to come in, the week before the season starts, especially a wide receiver. Like even with a defensive end, and Nick Bosa is going to come in shape. But even at wide receiver is probably a little bit more difficult to jump in, get that timing right with your offense, with your quarterback. and things like hamstrings and all that sort of stuff could start to really derail the early part of a season. So if the holdout does last beyond the end of the preseason, then that does start to actually become a problem. But I wouldn't start to get worried about it until preseason games start getting played and Brandon Ayuk's still not signed. That would be the time when it was like, okay, and it would also be a signal that okay, maybe Ayuk's really far apart. And I think if you go into the season and if you're missing games, obviously, or Brandon Ayuk just doesn't want to re-sign for whatever number the 49ers are going to come up to at max, then he might have to go because the 49ers do have other options. And a lot of teams with a lot of players don't have other options. There is that one little thing, and it's that the 49ers are really good, have a lot of expensive players, and they do have other options to pay. So I can see a future without Brandon Ayuk, even though I think the future should have Brandon Ayuk in it.
Yeah, I think my concern was not really that this is going to get done. Is will this bleed into the regular season? Will this be something where he gets a training camp late? Because I think that's my biggest concern. I don't want this to be an issue where Ayuk comes in a little bit later or just shows up week one. I think we aren't overstating the importance of the 49ers getting off to a very good start, especially with that soft landing of a schedule that they have early on. So it could be you can look at it two ways and say, well, Brendan, are you could use that time to get his feet under him? No, I kind of want the 49ers rocking and rolling a little bit early on before you get into that part of the schedule where it's like Kansas City and Dallas, and then you have that end schedule where it gets a lot harder. So I think my concern isn't that they'll get it done. I think my concern is does it go into training camp and how does this affect this team that has got to have it this year?
Zeke's 1 year ahead of us already. He says, "You think Brock pulls this stunt next year?" Look, and that kind of ties into this question from where was it at? From Helmet to Helmet 49ers podcast. He says, he or she, I hate to presume, he or she says, what is the advantage of the Niners always waiting to sign their players to new contracts? I don't get it. If they wait, they will pay more, and or the player holds out and misses out on practices. And so to the last question, I don't think it's about Purdy holding out. I think it's about the 49ers not speeding up their process a little bit. Do you think it's at their advantage? Like they didn't pay Bosa less last year by this thing going all the way to the end of August, into September, actually. They didn't save money that I can see in any of the other negotiations before that. Are the 49ers doing themselves a disservice? Because I feel like they could get a deal done the day the season ends with Brock Purdy if they really wanted to. Do they want to? Because it hasn't seemed like they're motivated. This was one of the most obvious off seasons to be motivated to re-sign your guy in Brandon Ayuk, knowing that all these other wide receiver contracts were on tap, and they've been behind all of them now except for CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, and the thing is and I've said this before, I think that the way the 49ers do business is as they are getting closer to training camp, I think even before pads start popping, I think they have a really good idea of their salary cap, who's going to be there, and the moves that they're going to have to make, which makes their outlook a lot clearer. If I'm not mistaken, I believe they have $32 million under the cap, which I and you and I agree, they're looking to roll over into next year. That's not them like trying to wait around for some, it could be a deadline deal or something like that, but it won't be something that'll take up significant amounts of the cap. But I think they get a clearer picture of what the cap looks like, what they're going to take into next year, how this is going to affect. Now, is it smart? Is it shrewd? I don't know, but that's their process, right? Like when you watch, and it started with Jerry Jeudy. When Jerry Jeudy gets that contract, and you're like, Cleveland, what are you doing? And you're looking at how much money he's getting. Then it's Amon-Ra St. Brown, then it's Devonta Smith, and it's Jalen Waddle, and then the price effectively goes up. But their process has always kind of been to just have a clear outlook of what they believe they are going to take into next season with the salary cap, what they intend to roll over, and how they intend to put this contract underneath all of that, which is why they wait to training camp when they figure out, hey, this guy's probably not going to be here. This guy's probably not going to be here. We've got to go through the 53. They're not going to make it. That's when they really start to see motion. So I think that's kind of what they're doing.
Got a question here from Viet Ta in the chat. He says, may actually be a good thing to see what we have in the backup wide receivers. Do you buy that? Hey, it's okay, BA. Go sit wherever you are. Go run routes on a baseball field, apparently, according to some of the photos we've seen on the social media. Can we get him a better field to practice on? BA running routes on a baseball field somewhere is good for the 49ers so they can get Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing, Trent Taylor, more reps. Like who needs more reps? Are the 49ers actually more snaps for Trent Taylor? I love it. Is this benefit the 49ers with the Brandon Ayuk holdout? I love the twist.
I mean, you could look at it that way, right? And Ricky Pearsall, from all accounts, has looked good as a route runner, but there have been concerns with can he beat man pressure. I think a lot of that will be put to the forefront because if he does have to step in for Ayuk, he will be going up against the first team defense, and I think that could be beneficial, right? Iron sharpens iron type of thing. For me, I don't think it's going to be as beneficial. I want this team to continue what they were doing in terms of how they were last season, building more of that up. I want to see this offense just continue to get into a rhythm and just get ready and just be all systems go for week one. May not be in the cards, may not be how I like it, but again, there are two ways to look at it, and it could be that Ricky Pearsall does start to learn a little bit more of the intricacies facing Mooney Ward or facing Diamador Lenore and beating man pressure, and maybe if he is pressed into duty. And that's why I said I believe that Ricky Pearsall obviously is here for the future, but he gives the 49ers depth that they've never had really a wide receiver. Otherwise, you're stuck playing, Ray McLeod or Chris Conley or Willie Snead or like those type of guys. Yes, that's good for sure. But still, I think it's a detriment to the team itself because I do want to see them get right back into last season mode and just get the ball rolling right away. I don't want a ramp up period during the regular season. That's not what that's there for.
Danny Gray? Is Danny Gray dead, or does a few extra snaps? He has an opportunity in camp to make more plays if Brandon Ayuk isn't out there. No,
sorry, I can't. I can't. It's just
you're swiping left.
Wait, yeah, right now, like honestly, again, we talked about the amount of receivers they're going to keep, right? Ayuk, Samuel, Pearsall, Jennings. That's 4. Maybe Jacob Cowing's the guy that maybe takes a year off, right? Maybe Chris Conley's probably got the inside track right now. They love him so much. Ronnie Bell probably isn't going away. I don't know where Danny Gray or who he jumps. I don't know. Like, is Danny Gray going to take a leap? Yes. Is he going to take a leap big enough to jump one of these guys? Highly doubtful, unless he just turns into a completely different player who can actually stay on the field and be productive.
It's definitely more likely that he takes a leap off the roster than he takes a leap
correct
ahead of somebody, because he would have to. The Pearsall thing hurts him more than anything because he has to jump so high on the roster to have utility on game day, because he's not going to be ahead of those guys on the special teams depth chart. They're already 4 deep in their most obvious top 4. So if you're the 5th, 6th wide receiver on the roster, you're not playing special teams. There's no way you can make the roster. So Danny Gray was really maybe hurt more than any player on the roster by the most recent draft class, because they're not going to cut their rookies, and you don't impact special teams. He's not a returner. He's not, a coverage guy. He's a speed guy that is not utilized. And so it's not really anything against him as a player. He might go somewhere else and be good. There's just no opportunity for him with this 49ers team anymore.
Yeah, the 49ers are telling you what they believe in Danny Gray, right? Like they went out and they drafted 2 receivers. Obviously, that can be seen as a pick for, whoever it is, Ayuk or Debo, who's not going to be here. I would put my money still on Debo not being here next season. But it still tells you that they believe that they needed more from the position right now. And if they believe that much in Danny Gray, they would just say, hey, we can stick with what we got. We believe in the kid. It just, obviously, when you're not on the field, you can't help. And when you are on the field, it seems like the only way for them to get him open are on those slot fades, or like those routes where he's able to just fade away from the cornerback and just get down the field in straight line speed. But I don't know if there's a place for him to play over those guys unless there's massive injuries. And let's just knock on wood if that's not the case.
A great point about the doghouse. Kyle's philosophy is if you're not ready to go, you go to the doghouse. And that's really the best hope for Danny Gray, is that the rookies just go straight to the doghouse first. And Danny Gray would be coming out of the dog, because they didn't even elevate him last year when he was healthy at the end of the year. So like they're telling us a lot about him. But this kind of ties into the next thing I want to talk about with tight end U and George Kittle over there in Memphis at tight end U. coaching up the tight ends. There's quarterbacks throwing to these guys. There's famous tight ends. There's not so famous tight ends. And Cam Latu is another guy who's already immediately deep into the doghouse. But there was a photo that I believe it was Dave Lombardi of The Athletic posted this week, and he's there covering the tight end U event. And it was a picture of the 49ers tight ends getting together. And it was pretty telling for a lot of reasons. And one of the main reasons why it was telling was, well, Cam Latu's not there. He's hurt. This would be a great opportunity for him to, get better. Braden Willis, last year's 7th round pick, also not there. And the recent draft classes, you're starting to look at some of these guys. The 49ers had the fewest snaps of any team in the draft last year. Any team in the NFL, no team had fewer snaps from their rookie class than the 49ers. Now, they didn't have a first or second round pick, which is part of it, but they had a 3rd round pick that didn't play. One of their 3rd round picks was a kicker, so they're not on the field for very many snaps. We're going to see a big jump in Jair Brown's play, most likely this year, unless Aponte, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm penciling him as a starter. You seen him as a starter? Okay, good. Yes. So we got more snaps at least there. Where are the rest of the snaps coming from? I don't know, because the 4 49ers tight ends that were pictured were Eric Saubert. Speaking of guns, no offense, Jason, but he was rocking much bigger guns than you are currently.
Oh, yeah.
At tight end university.
Hope so.
George Kittle was dwarfed by the rest of these guys. Mason Pline is a former hooper, 6'6". He looks like he's been hitting the weight room. And Logan Thomas, we already know, coming out of college as a quarterback, was 6'6", 240, and he's put on weight from there. So this is a really good training camp battle at tight end. And those 4 big old dudes, Mason Pline, I know he's undrafted, but if he shows anything in camp, he might leapfrog both of the rookie tight ends from last year.
Yeah, and Braden Willis was the only one who actually got snaps aside from Charlie Warner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and especially at the end of the year, they may not have been a bunch of snaps, but he would have been on the one on the field. And then, when you hear them talk about Braden Willis, he's the one that jumps out. Funny enough, I had a conversation with Guy Haberman, and Guy Haberman said, man, the tight end that I've got my eye on, Mason Pline, he's like, this guy, he's like, I'm not telling you that he's just going to jump everybody, but he was like, you can see that there is something there a little bit, right? And it just seems like everybody is talking about almost every single other tight end except him, right? And obviously, he's not ready to go right now, still injured, stuff like that. Obviously, he was at tight end U, so that's fine. But it's tough to see him right now break through as well, because the 49ers have told you what they believe about their second tight end spot after losing Charlie Warner to tampering. Atlanta had to make sure that they had got that one done. You can't let Charlie Warner get out of your spider web.
Yeah, that was one of the most curious tampering maneuvers of all time. Like the Atlanta Falcons might have a problem. When you have a buddy who just like steals stuff for no reason, and you're like, hey buddy, why did you just steal that from the mini mart? I would have bought you that candy bar. Why are you stealing stuff for no reason? Like, you might have a problem for your Atlanta Falcons with some of the dealings they did. I get it with Kirk Cousins if you're trying to get a quarterback, but Charlie Warner, probably unnecessary.
Yeah, and it's the same thing too, is that he's stealing, and he has money in his pocket. Like, why are you doing this? Like, it's just it was just really odd to hear them tampering with Charlie Warner. Like, if I'm a team, and I think the way that the NFL handed down the penalty lets me know I'm going to tamper now when I really want a player now. If it's going to cost me just like a 5th round pick or something like that, if it's somebody really impactful, I'm just going to go ahead and do it for a 5th round pick, and I make sure I get my guy. But again, it's about like what they've been telling you. They sign Brock Wright to that offer sheet. That gets matched. They bring in Seibert. They bring in Logan Thomas. They're telling you again what they believe. And again, I hate to bring it up, but when Kyle was asked, Kyle did not dance around the question, which was, hey, is Cam Latu your tight end too? And he just was like, no. Like, just not even like, well, we're going to see it. It was just no.
It was one of those things where I was like, oh, sucks to be that guy. It reminds me of Brandon Ayuk a few years ago, because remember, everyone expected that big year 2 breakout. And they're like, hey, what happened, Kyle? Well, this Brandon Ayuk breakout didn't happen in year 2. And he's like, oh, the only reason he played as a rookie because everybody else was hurt. It was like, geez, okay. Damn.
Yeah, like it's funny because I think a lot of people get upset sometimes when, coach speak is one of the answers you get. But in that regard, I think Coach Speak would have been the perfect answer. Like, it would have been
There's a
so easy
reason
for him
Coach
to
Speak exists. Yeah.
right. He could have easily just said, look, Cam had a rough time last year. He got injured. We're excited to see what he's got. We've got a lot of guys in there that are ready to compete. He's got his work cut out for him. That's all he's got to say. Flat out no. Like, it's just crazy. And it just, again, Kyle sometimes has a way of just being way too direct, way too like and for people that don't like it, I find it refreshing. But again, they're telling you what they believe in Cam Latu. It's crazy.
Do you think they told us anything about Darrell Luter and Robert Beal and some of the other recent 49ers draft picks that they brought in so many cornerbacks and brought in, just a completely new group of edge players? Because it does feel like they're and look, you shouldn't expect a bunch of their first pick was in the third round and they drafted a kicker. So they must not have liked everybody that was on the board for them at that point because they were, it was a weird draft for the 49ers in 2023. But, it does feel like they're trying to undo some of the stuff they've done in recent drafts with Danny Gray and some other players because of what they've done in free agency. If we're just going by believe what they show you rather than what they tell you.
Honestly, I would say that this one doesn't feel like they're telling me what they think about Darrell Luter. I really believe that they want to give him a good look. And I think, again, he was injured for a long part of the season. I really do believe that they want to give him a good look because they do believe that he can be an outside corner. Now, when you have a chance and you're doing best player available, you have your Renardo Green and your Malik Mustafa. And if they're high on your board, it's sink or swim in this league, right? Like it's less about and it's crazy for me to kind of backpedal on what I've been saying about like the way that they drafted a wide receiver and what they're saying about certain guys and what they're saying about certain guys at tight end. I just don't get that sense around Darrell Luter because they activated him, wanted him on the roster to at least play special teams. I just have this weird feeling that they definitely want to see him get outside corner reps just to see if they can be even more loaded because then that's like a huge feather in the 49ers cap if Darrell Luter ends up being that guy for them.
And the corner moves, well, obviously they drafted a rookie in the second round, but Rocky Sin and Isaac Yedem, those were 1-year contracts too.
Mm-hmm.
And we do know that Charvarius Ward's going in the last year of his contract. So this wasn't anything that was like long-term. You had to move heaven and earth to get the roster the way it is at the cornerback position. It's just that, look, we don't know a lot about this guy, so we better make sure we're covered now. But hopefully if he's good, those 1-year contracts are going to be gone anyway. And he might be the cornerback too, starting in 2025, if you find that out about him. So still a lot of opportunities there. Yeah, I don't think that was a door closing move. It doesn't feel nearly as much like it does with the tight ends.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, again, when you look at the way that when you were talking about Danny Gray being healthy and them not activating him, okay, yeah, it could be, hey, we don't have enough roster spots, but like Willie Snead being called up at from practice squad, like on certain games. And it's just, it feels a lot more like they are telling you definitively what they feel about those other guys. And I still believe that when Luter was ready to go, they wanted to have him at least be on the roster for special teams and in an emergency if he had to play out there. And you can never have enough cornerbacks ever, especially considering, what we could see roster turnover and things like that. So yeah, I really do believe I get the sense that they really want to see what they have in Luter. And I think they really like him. I think they, again, one of those guys that they just keep saying dog and dog and dog over again. I think that he kind of embodies that mentality that they love on defense.
One of the topics we wanted to talk about today, Jason, was that the article at NFL.com about the best quarterback divisions in the NFL. And, we might be a little bit biased over here about the NFC West. And by the way, this is a Q&A episode too. So let us know what your questions are. And then we're going to roll for probably at least another half an hour here, finish up an hour solid on this edition of Aponte and Peacock and Aponte, depending on which coast you live under. By the way, you're getting some props in the chat with your jersey selection.
Oh yeah. It's Mike Bibby.
Wait, hold on. One second though. 1 second. Please don't tell me that you are a 49ers, Yankees, and Memphis Grizzlies fan.
No. I don't have a basketball team. I mean, you see
Okay.
Steph right here, right? Like,
Okay.
I've kind of grown fond of them and the way that they won. But this jersey is just, I have a Mitchell and Ness basketball jersey like collection.
Yeah.
So I have this, like an Iverson rookie jersey, Toronto Raptors, Vince Carter jersey, like a bunch of like a Penny Hardaway Magic jersey. So if you see me in a basketball jersey, I don't have a team. So this is just, I always was fond of this jersey. And when I saw the Mike Bibby one came out, I had to go grab it. So yeah, I trust me. Don't worry about it. I'm not a Vancouver, Memphis Grizzlies fan.
Right. I didn't even think about that. That's actually a Vancouver jersey too. So yeah,
Right.
like
Right.
I
Right.
don't like. Ever since they moved from Vancouver, I can't root for them anymore.
Right.
Um,
Right.
uh, nice Steph bobblehead back there,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that doesn't undo the stank of the Yankees fan in you. Just want to let you know
Oh,
that.
but what am I supposed to do? My dad's from the Bronx, man. Hey, listen, yesterday was a really tough day. With the passing of Willie Mays. Oh my God, man. So real quick, like my father, I tweeted about this back in the day when ESPN was a proper channel. They used to show the home run derby back in the day, where it would be two superstars and it would be inning after inning, and they would hit right, like, and
Yep.
they would hit homers, and they would get 3 outs per inning. And I used to watch that religiously with my father. And as much as my father gave me the 49ers, baseball is our bond. That is the one thing that that is our thing, right? And it's the Yankees. He's from the Bronx, really close to Yankee Stadium, that type of thing. My father's favorite player was Mickey Mantle, but my father would always tell me, always, the best I've ever seen is Willie Mays. And my father was the first person who really put in my mind about favorite and best. Very rarely are our favorite players the best, right? My favorite player is Derek Jeter. He's not the best shortstop of all time. My favorite player is Allen Iverson. He's not the greatest of all time. But my father let me know right away, that he said that he thought that Willie Mays was the best baseball player he ever saw. And when he became a New York Met, he ran to Shea Stadium to watch him at the end of his career just to get a glimpse of him. And even at that time, he was on his way out. But
Oh
that
yeah.
just speaks to that. That just speaks to that.
I mean, he's the one guy universally everyone talks about him. Is like this guy was different. Ted Williams says this is why the All-Star game exists. So you get to see guys like Willie Mays play.
Mhm.
And yeah, just unbelievable player, unbelievable career, unbelievable life. And yeah, it is a sad day. I'm a Giants fan, and my family are all Giants fans, and my uncle and my dad and their uncles and fathers, they're all, Willie Mays was the guy, and I didn't get to grow up and watch him play, but that was the guy for multiple generations of baseball fans. When baseball was the biggest sport, that was the big draw, the national pastime, and it's gotten passed up in popularity by some sports, but Willie Mays was the greatest at the pinnacle of that sport and how popular that sport was. And what a life at 93 years old. And it gives me the opportunity to speak on something real quick, if I may. My grandmother, I got news actually that she passed away today,
Oh,
96
I'm
years
sorry.
old. And unbelievable woman. What a life she led. When you're that age, it's just like look back and remember how amazing of a life it was. And she was the Willie Mays of grandmas. Maybe Willie Mays was the my grandma of baseball players. You know what I mean? Like that
Right.
kind of talent. And the just such wonderful lives. And you get to that age, 93, 96 years old, my grandmother was. So yeah, shout out Grandma Val. Thanks for letting me just say that, because it's sad, but it's also like when you get to that age, it's just like look back and enjoy the ride, and remember how great uh, those people were.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, Brian. Condolences to you and your family as well too. It's tough.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Man, I would love to have some of those homemade cookies once again. Never be duplicated. It's the kind of thing you can't duplicate, man. You can try. Um, Quarterbacks. Does the NFC West have the best collection of quarterbacks in the division? We're talking Brock Purdy, Matt Stafford, Kyler Murray, Geno Smith. It might be the only division that has everybody above, like almost every division has like, oh my God, that quarterback, I would not want to run out there with that quarterback. Geno Smith, what an amazing career rebound he's had. Kyler Murray, despite some weird stuff going on with him, he looked good at the end of last year. He's a super talented guy. He's a player you don't want to play against when he's on. might have got himself a generational wide receiver in this draft. We'll see how Marvin Harrison Jr. looks there with the Arizona Cardinals. And obviously, we know Brock Purdy. I had a little argument with Croc on Locked On 49ers. I said Matthew Stafford's probably the best quarterback in the division still. You look at the numbers, though, and Brock Purdy has a pretty good claim to that as well. So the NFC West is a pretty phenomenal division right now for quarterbacks. There are some better quarterbacks in the NFL than those in the NFC West, but does the entire division stack up for those divisions against the NFC West? What are your thoughts there?
It certainly has a claim to it, right? But the reason that people will not give the NFC West that type of claim is still the argument around Brock Purdy is Shanahan's system and the offense, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just offensively that, fine. And then the Geno Smith thing is like, is it kind of going the other way now? Like, it was very good 2 years ago. He was good last season. Like, he wasn't bad. But then bringing in Sam Howell, and I think that was kind of put in the article where it was like, maybe you might see this guy, born, thrown right in here. But with the Kyler thing, Kyler gives you those glimpses of him being a top 10 guy, but it's never consistent, right? And I think back to a few years ago, under Cliff Kingsbury, when they started out really hot and he was rolling, and they were like, oh man, it's like Kyler an MVP guy. And then it kind of just the bottom falls out during the season. How much of that is Cliff Kingsbury, who I don't really think too much of? That's definitely fair. But Kyler has those moments where you're like, there it is. And then it's just those stretches where you're just like, my God. And the funniest part is when you bring up Matthew Stafford was so consistent all last season. And so was Brock Purdy, right? Like, Brock Purdy didn't have bad stretches of football, right? Like, at all, by no stretch of the imagination. We have the 3-game losing streak where things weren't as good, right? We can point to certain things. Guys were missing. It was raining, right? The kicker misses a kick. Who knows? They would have probably won that game in Cleveland if Moody puts that thing through the uprights. But Stafford was very much like, and even in the game that they lost to the Lions in the playoffs, they didn't lose because of Matthew Stafford. They just lost because the Lions were just a little bit better. Like, Matthew Stafford had one of his most impressive seasons last year, whether it doesn't bear it out statistically. I think just based on the eye test in the film and quarterback play, he was putting some balls in keyholes, 35 yards down the field. Like, it's insane some of the throws he put on tape last year.
Yeah, people forget how crazy Stafford's arm talent is, and he was a little bit of a wild stallion when he came into the NFL, put up big fantasy numbers, and we saw it in the NFC Championship game. He threw the ball to the wrong team. The 49ers weren't able to capitalize on it. And when we brought up this subject, Croc asked me, he said, okay, if Stafford's better than Purdy, if the 49ers had Stafford instead of Purdy, do they win the Super Bowl?
That year, yes.
No, that year, yes. That's Jimmy G, though. He was asking about this latest Super Bowl. And I said, well, let me put it this way. If you said I could swap quarterbacks, knowing the 49ers lost, maybe you would say yes. But just give me just make it so there's not a muffed punt. Or just, Christian McCaffrey doesn't fumble. I would take that over swapping quarterbacks because Stafford might throw the ball to the wrong team too. Mm-hmm. And so Purdy wasn't the problem. Purdy was fine. There's a possibility it got worse than Purdy if weird Stafford showed up. It's a possibility the 49ers win too. Just how about don't fumble? Best running back in the NFL. And I would take Purdy, and he was just fine in that game. So it could go worse too. Even though a guy's better, it doesn't mean he's always going to be better. And the efficiency from Brock Purdy, and that was one of the things with Brock Purdy as a rookie, and it's kind of gone underrated and underreported about how much Purdy improved from that aspect of, remember as a rookie, there were some moments where you're like, whoa, calm down, dude. It looked like it was moving fast for him, and he was scrambling around like crazy. It was much less frenetic for Brock Purdy in year 2 with the 49ers. And he didn't put the ball in harm's way very often at all, like he did as a rookie. And so that was really impressive. And I can't wait to see what Brock Purdy does in year 3 if there's more improvement. And you would have to project some improvement because he actually has a full offseason as the starter for the first time in his career.
And that's the thing that I got really impressed with last season. And it's crazy because I tweeted this out and a lot of people, I guess, didn't understand what I meant, or just as usual, tweets you just read a piece of it and you're just like, how could you say that? Well, I said, following the Cleveland game, that I felt more confident about Brock Purdy than I ever did. Because very rarely is the game going to be as easy as it's looked early on in the season with him and at many times during the season. I want to see you. I don't learn anything from a quarterback or a football player when things are rolling. I don't learn anything about you. I learn about you when things are not right. So with all of the things that happened in that game, he had trouble gripping the football and they were turning the football over and the offense was stagnant. He had a chance to get down the field and get his kicker into field goal range, and he did exactly that. He did exactly that. And even though he missed the kick, I walked away saying, man, he can thrive when things aren't going right. Like he can go ahead and still he can bounce back. That's more important because it felt like whenever it was Jimmy G, and I hate to bring this down on him or anything like that, things snowballed so fast. Like when things would go bad, they would just go horrible. Like step out of bounds and throw a pick six, and or throw the football straight back, or, like those type of things, and it would spiral. Like and sometimes it would just be these games where he would throw 3 and 4 interceptions. With Brock, I was so impressed with that Cleveland game that I said I am now less worried about him following this loss. And of course, you get pushback. But what I meant by that is when it gets tough like that, I became more impressed with him because he had a chance at the end of the game to get them in a field goal range. You couldn't have asked anything more from the young man. If Moody makes the kick, we're not even talking about a 3-game losing streak, are we?
Brock Purdy might not be the tallest guy. He might not have been drafted early. He might not have a cannon of an arm, but he is the coolest of customers. And it's the one thing that is a deal breaker for every great quarterback in the NFL. You go through every great quarterback in the NFL, save maybe like a Brett Favre, who was pretty wild the entirety of his career. And it bit him in the end because he was like, okay, you've gone too far, Brett, and you're gonna have to hang it up. You're gonna have to retire 3 times now. But with Brock Purdy, he is a cool customer. And that's why it's like, man, when you think back to Joe Montana, like that was the thing he had. It was like, I will stare it down and I'm going to be cool. My heart rate does not change. And Brock Purdy has that. And that's fun to watch. And it's just such a perfect match for Kyle Shanahan and the offense. And I can't wait to see what he looks like. Dude, he's putting on weight, by the way, too. You see the photo of him? He's putting on, if like Brock Purdy with a couple more MPH behind his fastball, like that's not nothing.
Yeah, 100%. And that's another thing that's exciting about Brock Purdy going into the season. I don't think that if Brock Purdy puts up another season like he did last year, that it's going to quiet the room. It'll quiet some. It won't quiet the room, though, because they're always just going to keep pointing to Kyle Shanahan and Christian McCaffrey and all. Those people have their mindset. The only way to really stomp all that out is to get the Lombardi, right? But yeah, I think that it's such an annoying argument, right? Because when Tom Brady was throwing to Randy Moss, and it wasn't like, I don't know if he's that good this season, right? Like when Tyreek Hill was getting balls thrown to him from Patrick Mahomes, nobody was saying, Andy Reid and Tyreek Hill and all of them are carrying, right? Like I'm not trying to compare them to them, but it's just every quarterback's needed weapons. Every quarterback has needed weapons. And all they did last season before the playoff run was cry about how Mahomes didn't have any weapons outside of Kelsey. And their defense eventually like moved up, like, and carried the load. So that offensive weapons argument, that coaching argument is so silly because when you look at most of the quarterbacks that have been successful in the league, they haven't been throwing the garbage men and mailmen.
Oh, dude,
like, what are we talking about?
If you look at the history of the NFL and look at Hall of Fame quarterbacks, most of them had Hall of Fame coaches. And Hall of Fame coaches, most of them, almost all of them had Hall of Fame quarterbacks. And so those things go hand in hand, and winning goes hand in hand. And a lot of good, talented players are also on those teams with those good coaches and good quarterbacks because they're good at coaching guys up and they're also good at identifying talent. And so, it all just goes together. And it's very rare that you have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes where it's like, man, he was kind of throwing to scrubs at times last year, but he still had Travis Kelce and he's already ingrained as the guy. I don't think the 49ers are ever going to ask quite that of Brock Purdy, but it might start to get a little bit more difficult. And I am fascinated to see what it looks like if they pay him $60 million and they do lose some weapons and he's got to do more and he's got to drive the bus. I think he can do it, but it'll be interesting. And it'll be more, it's going to be more difficult for everybody. It was more difficult for Mahomes. They had the worst offensive production last year of Mahomes' career, but guess what? The defense was awesome. too.
Yeah.
And so that helps. And so that goes underrated as well. If the defense wasn't good, Mahomes didn't go back to back, period.
Right. And I just wish that social media would have been around during the Joe Montana times. I mean, he's got Roger Craig and he's got Jerry Rice and he's got Bill Walsh.
Yeah.
It's just like, how much help does this guy need? And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, people. Like, what
Well,
are we
look,
even talking about here?
and I can't speak too much on that because I always trash on Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman. And I'm
I do
like,
too. But
most
that's fun.
overrated
That's
guys in the
Dallas.
league. They had the best offensive line.
I do that too.
Yeah.
Emmitt Smith's not the greatest running back of all time.
He's not.
Sorry. Like,
The most yards, he wasn't the greatest running back.
there is no world where you'll be able to convince me of that. Nobody can ever convince me of that because of how good that offensive line was.
So if it's not the NFC West,
Mm-hmm.
what's the best division for quarterbacks? I saw somebody bring up the AFC West, and then we're like, oh wait, I forgot how bad the quarterback situations were in Denver and Las Vegas.
Respect Bo Nix. Respect Jarrett Stidham, pal.
That is the stars and scrubs division at quarterbacks. And like, look, Bo Nix was a first round pick, but I think there was some desperation involved with that selection. They do have Mahomes and Herbert, and that's a pretty darn good start, but we're talking all four quarterbacks, and they do fall short.
So the writer, he basically picked this division on name value. And it's hard to argue with the first two names, which is AFC North. It's hard to argue with Lamar Jackson, who's coming off his second MVP season, and Joe Burrow, who's coming back. But then you look at the back end, and it's like Deshaun Watson hasn't looked like Houston Deshaun Watson in a long time. And it's actually shocking how poor Deshaun Watson hasn't just, hey, he's taking a step back, or Deshaun Watson has played and put up some of the worst numbers efficiency-wise. He's like number 36 in certain statistical categories, right?
So Deshaun Watson hasn't been a good quarterback for 5 years.
Right. So there's still this like hope of, is Deshaun Watson going to turn into that Houston guy? I think that's wave bye-bye time. Like, I think it's wave bye-bye to that. Like, it's crazy that the Cleveland Browns don't need Houston Deshaun Watson. They just need a competent quarterback who's named Deshaun Watson. Like, they don't even need him to be that. They just won all those games with Joe Flacco. Deshaun Watson's not even performing at Joe Flacco's level as how bad he's been.
Yeah, they needed a 40-year-old quarterback to save their season because of how bad he was playing. And obviously the Pittsburgh Steelers, you get they're trying to reclaim Justin Fields' career, but the league told us how much they value him. And then Russell Wilson's been bad since halfway through the COVID year, right? Was that the year that he was good and it was like, oh, maybe he's going to be winning MVP this year? Then he kind of went in the tank the second half of the year. Then he's been bad for 3 years since then.
So he's doing it off names. So if Deshaun Watson magically returns to form, then I don't think it's really a discussion, because then it's Burrow, Lamar, and then you get, Houston Deshaun back. I don't think that's ever going to happen again. I think the Browns will just be happy with him being competent and using his legs a little bit and just doing little things. Like, forget all that stuff that you saw in Houston. That stuff is out the window right now at this point with him. Like, he is so bad. Like, I was looking up his statistics, so bad that he's like behind backups to backups in terms of certain, and obviously not playing a lot with injuries and stuff like that. But even when you watched him play, he just little things like wide open layups, can't hit him. So I guess they're basing all this on the fact that they believe Russell Wilson is probably going to start. He probably is going to win them a bunch of games, because the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's what they do. They win 8, 9, 10 games a year, like literally all the time. Like, literally, that's Mike Tomlin's MO. But I have a hard time putting them over the NFC West because Deshaun Watson is nowhere near that player that he used to be.
And look, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, I can get why you would rank this division pretty high. But to be honest with you, you're kind of crossing your fingers for a resurgence from Watson or Wilson or Justin Fields. So they would be barely better than the AFC West to me. And I would take the top two guys in the AFC West actually over the top two guys in the AFC North, not by a ton, but by a little. So I think it'd be like North then West back to back. And they actually have the AFC West number 3 on their list. And by the way, this is NFL.com, and it's Eric Edholm was the writer of this article. But yeah, it's name value for the North. And the NFC West does come in second on their list, which was disrespectful. It should be the West first because they've got 4 legit starting NFL quarterbacks that are above board. And I don't think there's another division that can say that. Maybe Drake May, if he pulls off a CJ Stroud like rookie season, because look, Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Famer, as weird as things have gone with his career and coming off a torn Achilles. Tua's playing really good ball. He's below Purdy in my mind, but I understand why people lump them together because of the offensive systems, because of the talent around them, and because of their style of play and their stature, and obviously Josh Allen. So I would say AFC East has a better claim potentially, depending on what Drake May and Jacoby Brissett, but especially what Drake May could be by the end of his rookie season with the talent he has. I might argue AFC East over the AFC North.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, and if Aaron Rodgers turns back into that guy that he was, before, he hurt himself. I was gonna go somewhere else with that or whatever. I'm gonna stay away from that. But
Apparently, he's doing an ayahuasca retreat. Is the latest news on why he didn't go to mini camp, and that's we know how that is. That's something you can't reschedule. So,
I mean, listen. When you're Aaron Rodgers, you just don't blow off a retreat like that to for mandatory minicamp. But
I do want to say really quick, as weird as Aaron Rodgers is, like he's actually a pretty decent guy in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
I don't really get what this social, like his whatever he's trying to put out
new
there.
persona.
The persona, I don't get it. It does feel like a WWE angle because like during the pandemic, he's from Chico. We both went to Butte College in Chico, California. And I have some friends, some great friends that still live there. One of them is a restaurant owner and owned a couple of different restaurants, and that stuff got hit hard. And he like helped out the city and gave grants and free money to all these restaurants and some places that were having troubles. And so that was really cool of him. And you don't always get to see that stuff, and that stuff doesn't get reported a lot. He actually had a record label for a short time and put out a band of a band from the Chico area, a band that had some members that we used to play with back in the day when I was playing in bands in that area. And so some things that maybe you don't know about Aaron Rodgers that are good things that the script writers haven't put out there recently. But yeah, I don't get what this storyline is for Aaron Rodgers right now and what he's doing. It is really strange because he's not a complete weirdo a-hole, but he's trying to portray that on TV for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna just keep it strictly to football because that is so many layers, right? But if Aaron Rodgers is that guy that he was when he was in Green Bay, you're talking about Josh Allen, Tua, who's probably going to get paid soon. I think he's a fine quarterback. I think he's very efficient and he works in that offense very well. If Rodgers is that, I have a hard time with the back two with you telling me that Deshaun Watson. I would bet this. I would bet easy money, and this isn't even me jumping out on a limb. I would bet that Aaron Rodgers bounces back to the Green Bay form way before Deshaun Watson ever gets back anywhere near the Houston form.
No doubt, because we've never seen him not be a good quarterback. He just had an Achilles injury last year, and he's old. So, I 100% would agree with you. And look, how about this? Would you bet on Drake May being good, or would you bet on Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson being good, or even Justin Fields being good? Like, if you had to say, gun to your head, you have to pick one of those 4 quarterbacks is going to be good again in the NFL, I would pick Drake May.
Oh man, you would? Okay, so you really like Drake May?
Fields over Wilson. I think Wilson's a weirdo. I kind of want to see Fields get an opportunity in Pittsburgh.
I never understood why the Steelers wouldn't try to turn that over to Fields with the offense that Arthur Smith runs. Right, like I really don't like that.
It's a better fit than he had in Chicago for sure.
Right,
and Wilson's just a goofball and a weirdo, and I've had enough of Russell Wilson. I just don't.
Well, on the other side of that is I know what Russell Wilson is today, tomorrow, and on Sunday especially. I still believe that there's a way for you to get the most out of Justin Fields and Arthur Smith's offense of running the football, throwing the ball, like quick routes and stuff like that, like getting the ball out, like not putting him in a position of 1, 2, and 3. And you could still tap into this upside that's still there. Like there is no real upside with Russell Wilson other than just what you're getting. So for the Steelers, and it feels like they're in this weird. Well, I would have thought before Mike Tomlin got the contract extension that they were in this weird place where they're just tired of like winning enough games to make the playoffs and getting bounced in the first round. You're setting yourself up for that right now, once again, with Russell Wilson. This team is not built to go into the playoffs and deep into the playoffs. You're going to get into the playoffs and you're going to lose in the first round like you usually do. And if that's okay with you again, that's fine. But you could see Justin Fields do something for you that you can tap into. And I think the unknown for me is much more enticing than what I know with Russell Wilson.
It's kind of annoying that the New York Giants didn't give Justin Fields a shot. I thought you were a really nice fit there. And because Daniel Jones ain't it, and Drew Lock keeps getting chances, and he for sure. I was
gonna say respect Drew Lock,
dude. And the NFC East sneaky might be the worst division of quarterbacks because guess what? Dak is trash, and so is Jalen Hurts. The 49ers prove that, and I don't know what to expect out of Jaden Daniels. He might be the best one of all of them there.
Right. Yeah, and that's another thing too. Is like when you're looking around at the league, and I would have thought that Atlanta would have been the spot for him to go to, right? Like, and it just seems like a place where they could have just used him to run a football. Nope, they turn around and give Kirk Cousins all that money. Then the Giants come up, and I'm just like, dude, yeah, you definitely need a backup anyway, and you just know that this is Daniel Jones last year regardless. But again, this all goes back to draftism. Like, again, 100%. Drew Lock was taken high. You got to give him 7 and 10 and 12 chances because he was drafted high. Sam Darnold was drafted high. He's the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. You know, and it just kills me because now people are downplaying Brock Purdy, who was the last pick. But a lot of people are out here telling me, oh, we want Sam Darnold to start for us this year. Oh, we think Drew Lock is going to take this job over. Like, I don't understand the draft attachments, right? Like, and it's funny because that huge draft class that everybody thought was going to be the one, right? Trevor Lawrence gets the bag. I think that he's going to be a lot better this year coming off the injuries, and hopefully his receivers catch passes. Mac Jones is his backup. Trey Lance is in Dallas. Justin Fields is in Pittsburgh. Davis Mills is still in Houston. You know, like this draft class did not bear itself out at all. And everybody was kind of killing themselves to get one of these guys. And it's just crazy to think that all of these guys ended up in different places when everyone wanted to get their hands on them.
And Trey Lance is the best quarterback in Dallas anyway. So I'm only half kidding when it comes to Dak and Jalen Hurts. I'm just, I enjoy hating.
I think Hurts is exposed now. I think a lot of what people lost sight of with Jalen Hurts was that Shane Steichen was so good at getting him in the right spot. RPO, one throw, bang. Now this new coordinator just got him floating around in the backfield and just like he either throws it away or chucks it.
Nobody says that Jalen Hurts is only good because he was throwing to AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. There's a lot, and had the best offensive line in football in front of him. How come Purdy gets that, but not Jalen Hurts too? And maybe it's a hot take, but I might take the NFC North quarterbacks over the NFC East quarterbacks with Caleb Williams, Jared Goff, Jordan Love, and Sam Darnold for a few weeks before JJ McCarthy takes over there. As a total group, I might like that better than the East, even with Dak and Jalen Hurts.
I thought about them myself. Like, I really did. I thought about them myself, and I'm just like, wait a minute, Goff and Love, right? Goff and Love, that's two right there. I think we all agree that, like, one way or another, Jordan Love is going to have to put it together, but Goff is good. I think Goff is somebody that I said is a lot closer to Brock Purdy than people want to think. I still take Brock. He's still a lot closer than people would like to think, right? But at the same time, Caleb could be, and then you have, this other quarterback right here, JJ McCarthy. Sam Darnold is going to start. I was thinking them myself. I was literally thinking them myself for that same reason.
Hugh says Joe Burrow has to prove he can stay healthy. I absolutely agree because you got to be on the field to be your best. And the best availability is the best ability is availability. I mean, it's a stupid cliche, but it's absolutely true. What do you think, Dak or Trevor Lawrence?
Woo, man. All right. So if you're talking about what you want for the next 10 years, Trevor, you're talking about today, Dak.
Dak's a better quarterback today, but Trevor's close, and he's been a little bit disappointing just because what he was billed at. But I can see why the Jaguars would give him the money and they'd be like, yeah, we're good here. He's the best quarterback in franchise history. He's been let down by the Jaguars and by his receivers at times. He's not the guy we thought yet. Could he be there? And would I take him going forward over Dak, I absolutely would. Thanks for the question by Steven Seagal there, by the way. I appreciate that.
Best Steven Seagal movie. Boom. Shoot a shot out of a cannon. Go.
Whatever the first one was. What was it called?
Above the Law?
Yeah, Above the Law. Yeah, because they only got worse. But like that format he had for that first couple of films, like he was on it. Like I was into that when I was a kid. I was like, hell yeah, give me more Seagal.
I'll be honest with you, man. I loved Hard to Kill. And like speaking of my dad, and we were just talking about Father's Day. My father was so into him that he like started to grow the ponytail a little bit as well
Oh
too.
wow, he was
Yeah,
going to the
yeah,
dojo.
yeah. And my father already knew karate. That was hilarious. Yeah, man.
Okay,
I don't know, man. Hard to Kill is the one that I like up there as well. So
I
Under
like
Siege isn't bad.
I liked the Van Damme movies too. I was a fan
Yeah.
of the weird,
Well,
like,
all right. Which one? Bloodsport or Kickboxer?
Bloodsport. Yeah,
Yeah.
Bloodsport is awesome with
Yeah.
the Kumite, right? With the
Yeah.
dude from Revenge of the Nerds
Mhm.
and Chung Lee.
Yep.
I mean, that was awesome.
I loved Kickboxer though too because you have that, the dancing,
Yeah.
Jean-Claude Van Damme. Like I thought, I really enjoyed that one. But yeah, Bloodsport is definitely the better movie in my opinion.
Oh, this is big time from Bobby. Above the
There we
Law was
go.
his first big movie. I was at his premiere and got his autograph, but he spelled my name baby. What?
Fun
Baby?
fact.
Oh man.
Fun fact about Steven Seagal. Steven Seagal has a reggae album that he put out not that long.
Yeah. No, he's tried to be a musician for a long time, and that never goes well, man. I don't know if you've heard my take. We don't have time for it, but sports and music, in my opinion, do not mix. And as Darren Waller again proved
Oh,
recently, like, please stop, guys. Just because you can afford a producer doesn't mean you should book studio time. I mean,
now.
and we just see it over and over again. We see it with actors, and sometimes there's some crossover there because it's more performance art, right? But man, it's almost always bad when someone who's already famous for something was like, oh yeah, and here's an album. It's like, no, thank you.
Now, I agree with that for the most part, but I'm a big hip hop enthusiast, right? And the rappers want to be ballers and the ballers want to be rappers, right? Like in
Yes.
every way, right? Like back and forth. Like Damian Lillard wants to rap, cool. But I do want to give respect to Shaquille O'Neal, who Shaquille O'Neal has a record with Notorious B.I.G. called Can't Stop the Rain. It's still amazing to this day. Finally put on the digital streaming platforms. So I will stand on this and say that Shaquille O'Neal has the best song from any rapper / athlete. And it's not even close, even though Damian Lillard's really good at what he does. But yeah, for the most part, Allen Iverson, when Allen Iverson made his album when I was a kid, I wanted to I had secondhand cringe, like secondhand, like embarrassment. I was just like, please, I don't do this. Just play basketball.
Himself. Well, it's okay to have a hobby, like play guitar, record it even, rap in your car or whatever. But just because you think you have flow doesn't mean you actually have flow. And it rarely, if ever, works. I disagree about Shaq. I haven't heard Dame stuff. I've heard that he is legit. To me, it's disrespectful because of how much time it takes to be great at something. It's the whole NFL versus NBA argument. Paul George, was it? I can't remember who it was. Oh no, then it was Paul George said something earlier this year, and then it was Austin Rivers, maybe. It was talking about how he could take 20 guys and go to the NFL right now.
No,
it's so disrespectful to think that you are going to be A-level elite at something that other people have poured their entire life into every single day to be great at and to refine it, and you're just going to walk in. I mean, miss me with that. And so that's kind of the mentality. You think you're Superman. There's ego involved. You're like, I'm his athlete.
Right.
I'm going to go get a producer. And the producers are like, oh yeah, dude, that sounds awesome. You're gonna pay me to do this, right? Okay, cool. Yeah, let's produce this record. Oh, this is tight, man. You sound so good. Yeah, it doesn't sound good. You can't just jump into something that other people have to pour their lives into and be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna take this over now. No, you're not.
Almost like Michael Parsons saying that he would hit 200 in Major League Baseball. Michael Parsons, if you believe that you are going to hit a Major League Baseball, I have a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn. It was like you would go 0-0-0 trying to hit a baseball. Are you insane?
I mean, even Jordan, it was unbelievable what Jordan was able to do. One of the greatest athletes to ever exist. He had to go to the AA level at the highest. He was still hitting 200 in AA. And he was 30 years old playing against 19-year-olds. And not a lot of people think about that. And it was even impressive what he was able to do. And so it's like, just stop. I get there's ego involved, but NFL players aren't going to jump in and play in the NBA. NBA players aren't going to jump in and play in the NFL. You might be able to catch a jump ball or two, but you probably couldn't get off the line of scrimmage. You're going to get crushed. You're going to get manhandled. You're not strong enough. You need years in the weight room to even get on that level. Technique. How about a basketball player wouldn't even be able to huddle. You wouldn't even know where to stand in the huddle. Would you be able to understand a Kyle Shanahan play call if you're Austin Rivers? Hell no, you wouldn't. You wouldn't know where to go. You would be swimming so hard. And that's if you could do it physically. And guess what? You couldn't do it physically either because you would get completely killed. And an NFL team, a basketball team of NFL players would be way better at basketball than a football team of NBA players because really they could all only play one position, which is tight end.
Right, and that was Austin Rivers. The crux of his argument was Tony Gonzalez and this guy and this guy. Yeah, they're all tight ends. Like it's like even guys who were wrestlers, right? Like who and used to play back in the day. Brock Lesnar tried. Like it's not as easy as all that, right? Like that's the thing too. And speaking of guys who like could only hit like 200. Tim Tebow tried to do that as well too, man. Like, and that's the thing. It's like, and the scouts were saying you can't take 11 years off from playing baseball and just show back up. Like, doesn't work that way.
Yeah, for Tim Tebow and guys like who was it, Brandon Whedon? It's like, man, you know what? Unfortunately, you're not good enough at either sport. Sorry, dude.
Now, I do want to say this. While Deion Sanders wasn't like this prolific player, there was one season with the Atlanta Braves, in which he led them in like runs scored, extra base hits, stolen bases, and that right there is a miracle within itself. And obviously he becomes a role player. And then remember, I think what we forgot, and I think it's fresh in my mind because I just watched a documentary about it, about him not showing up to training camp because the Braves were in the postseason, and then them trying to pay him another $2 million to come back to training camp. But the fact that even Deion Sanders for a little while played and had that successful of a season just speaks to how great he is, and as hard as that is.
By the way, Must Be the Money also did the musician.
That's a very good song. That's a very good song.
Which was awful, much worse than his baseball career. But he was playing too. It was like, he didn't just go pick up a bat one day and try to go play baseball because he was a good athlete. He was a good baseball player already. And, Bo Jackson too. It was like, those guys are freaks among freaks. They're like Jim Thorpe. You got to go back to Jim Thorpe and some other. It can be done, but you have to still play the sport and put in the time and put in the hours too. And especially baseball because it's such a skill related sport.
Absolutely. This is a great discussion too. I can't even believe that we got into this, outside of like football, but yeah, it is true though, like about like the disrespect, right? About it, like again, the understanding the cadence, being able to not cause penalties, understanding the play call, understanding what you're seeing, certain things aren't just as the play call is, right? Like when you're cast to run a route, it's not just run the route this way, it's run the route if you see this sort of coverage and then turn it to this if you see this coverage. All that stuff has to be years and years and years ingrained. That's not something that you can just show up and do. Like the idea that LeBron James could have been a successful football player is almost downright laughable to me.
I looked at his high school tape too. When this argument first came up a few months ago, I went and looked at LeBron's high school tape, and you can find it on Twitter. And he would clearly have been a tight end and not a wide receiver. He was so big. His quarterback was awful, so it was hard to tell. But he wasn't like, oh, this guy's going to be an amazing wide receiver. You saw him play, and you're like, this guy should play basketball. That's right. That's kind of what. But he was a freak, clearly, and he could have played D1 if he wanted to without much of a problem. By the way, one of the guys you would think would be good and rough and tumble and good at football as a basketball player is Draymond Green. Draymond Green has football footage. He tried to play in the spring game at Michigan State when he was in college.
State. Mm-hmm.
Awful. So bad. He looked like he had the arms where his legs go and legs where his arms go. It looked so bad. And he's one of the guys you would think, oh, this guy for sure would be able to be physical and play football. And it was like, no, that's not it. It's so different.
Wait a minute. Draymond Green doesn't play? I thought his name was Dre Greenlaw.
Draymond Greenlaw, yeah.
Draymond Greenlaw. Like, what the hell?
Okay, here we go. I know we're going long. I've still got some time. Are you good to keep going with a couple questions here?
Let's keep rolling. Yeah. I mean, the stupid Yankees are pissing me off anyway, so let's do it.
I've already got this one answered, so this can be short unless you got big thoughts on it. The Mount Rushmore of multiple sport athletes. So for sure Bo Jackson, for sure Deion Sanders. I'm going to put Jim Thorpe in there. And the fourth is just as easy. Aussie Rules football player, current punter for the 49ers, Mitch Wishnowsky.
I can't believe you wrote me into that. Like I was hanging on the edge of my seat waiting, and you wrote me right into that one. A serious answer is I think you have to put Jordan on there, right? And Jordan did that because of his father, right? Like in his and after he lost his father, he lost the spirit of the game and everything. Even hitting 219, even hitting 220 is a marvel in itself, because there are Major League Baseball, there are minor leaguers that have played their entire life and they can't even hit that much, right? We've got Joey Gallo right now, who hasn't had a hit since like the Reagan administration, right? And he's in, again, baseball is a very hard sport. Even if you are hitting 220, I tip my cap to you, because I played baseball in high school and it was as hard as it gets, because that ball moves as fast as it's coming and it's moving out of the way, and you've got to make a split-second decision. And they gave us metal bats. These guys are doing it with, with wood bats. So yeah, I would say Michael Jordan's number 4.
I could buy that, and obviously his basketball career is doing the heavy lifting there. It's kind of like the brothers, the brothers in Major League Baseball that have the most combined hits. It's like Joe DiMaggio has 3,000, and Dom DiMaggio has like 5 or something like that.
So Derek Jeter and I have combined for 3,487 hits. He has 3,487, and I have 0. But look at us as a tandem.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. There might be another one that we're missing.
I think we are, and that's what I was kind of just trying to think over myself.
Let us know in the chat if you think of somebody else that belongs on the Mount Rushmore of multi-sport athletes.
Okay. And I know this is college. Only. But Julius Peppers was a dog at North Carolina and basketball too. Like obviously, we know him for football, but those UNC teams were like going to the title game like almost every year that he was there. Julius Peppers is a dog.
Actually, how about 49ers legend Bruce Ellington? He was a starting point guard in the SEC at South Carolina, and then an NFL wide receiver. He might have been a better basketball player than a football player, now that I think about it.
Oh, you had to just throw that in there, didn't you, man? What about
well, Trent Baalke drafted him, and his blind spot with wide receivers.
Right. Former Yankee, former Dallas Cowboy Drew Henson.
Oh, Henson's another good one, who was kind of like not quite good enough at both, and then spent time away, and it kind of messed him up.
Right. So, and then Russell Wilson played a little bit of baseball.
Kyler Murray was drafted in the top 10.
Kyler Murray, right? I mean, if I'm Kyler Murray, right, and I have a first-round draft pick on there, right, and I understand how much baseball players make, and it's all guaranteed. Charlie Ward.
There we go. That's a good one.
That's a very good one. Heisman Trophy winner, and then with the Knicks made the finals and everything as well too. So that's a very good one. I think it's hard because those guys weren't able to do it professionally, so we have to look at like the guys who play both sports in college, right? Like that's why Julius Peppers came to my mind, because Julius Peppers wasn't just a guy at the end of the bench. He was a starting power forward, and then he would go out there and he would play defensive line for them as well too. Like, UNC isn't exactly a football powerhouse. Man, like, this is a really good conversation. I know we're missing other people too if we put our mind to it.
Gotta go to the super here. Gammon says, which one of you is taller? If you don't count Aponte's hair, I think we're pretty even. I actually did my combine height testing this year, and I'm 6'0", so 6'4" and an 1/8 is my official height. Where you at, Aponte? Have you had the official weigh-in yet?
No, I haven't. And I have to do it with someone who is not going to be biased, because if I ask, like a girl to do it, they're going to hate on me because they want me to be shorter, right? They don't want me to be 6'5". So they're going to find a way to just be like, no, no, like you can't let this happen. But I will definitely do it. And the hair it has to be from the bottom of your foot with no shoe on to right here, the top of your head, no hair.
You put your heels against the wall, and you put your back of your head against the wall. It's got to be flat too. The other thing, if you get a short person to do it, they put the ruler on your head like this, and so then you get a little bit of extra at the end. So
I gotta find another 6'5" guy around here to help me out, man. I don't know if they're growing on trees around here.
Look, the back of the card says 6'5", so I'll give it to Aponte until I see what those official numbers are.
And Bronny said that he was 6'5" and he's like 6'1". So hey, man, men lie about their size all the time.
I wanted to go back to another question here,
Yep.
and it was, oh yeah, actually, Jose says, does Peacock still do the morning show with Croc? I do the Locked On 49ers every day with Crocker. Usually we record in the evening. We put the YouTube version up at night, and then it's first thing up in your audio feeds the next morning. So if you were an audio listener, last week was a little weird. We do have some vacations up, so it might change, but almost every single weekday, Monday through Friday, when you get up in the morning and go to work, that podcast is going to be in your audio feed. But usually we record them at the night before and post it up early on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe to not only Overtime with Brian Peacock, this channel, Jason Aponte's channel. You also got to subscribe to Locked On 49ers. Also do the Peacock and Williamson NFL show daily on the Locked On Podcast Network. So lots of things to subscribe to. How many different channels are you on, by the way, Aponte?
I mean, I usually stream with Brad, Steph. I'll occasionally jump on other people's show, like whenever they ask. But I mean, I felt like I needed like this break, just a little bit of a break. Like it was like perfect, like going into Father's Day and everything, and nothing was really going on. I was just like, you know what, this is a perfect time to just like kind of let go and everything and enjoy myself. But we're back. Like, I think, leading all the way up until like training camp, I'm back in the saddle. So if you guys haven't noticed why I've been streaming or anything like that, we didn't do Bully Ball this week because Rob is in Disneyland. I'm praying for his wallet right now as we speak. Yeah, he didn't believe me. He didn't believe me like when we were talking, like when we were talking about it, because he's like, oh, I'm going to Disney. I was like, oh, made of money. He was like, oh, it can't be that expensive. I was like, oh, brother, oh, pal.
Dude, the entire Disney corporation is built upon extracting money from the wallet of parents when they take their kids to Disneyland or take them to the movies or sign up for Disney Plus or whatever it is. And they didn't love the Star Wars franchise. They saw dollars, and they've been pumping out as much Star Wars content as possible to extract those dollars since they bought that franchise.
They certainly don't love Star Wars at all. Like with these latest, like last few like entries and everything, they do not care at all. And Marvel's suffering the same fate as well too. But yeah, enough Disney. Like I'm just a man. What more do you want from me? Like I got to take my daughter to see Inside Out 2 now. What the hell?
I don't even know what that is, and thank goodness my 6-year-old son does not know what it is either yet. What's your favorite college football team? We'll end here because we gotta get rolling. I actually don't have a favorite college football team. I think it's kind of strange that people have a favorite college team and it's a college they didn't go to. Like I used to know a guy, he went to Akron, but he's a huge Ohio State fan. And I was like, that's a different school in the same state. That's like rooting for a high school across town that you didn't go to. I don't know. I think college sports is really weird. College sports fans are weird. College football is a trash product compared to the NFL too. The only reason I watch college football is through the lens of which one of these guys is going to play in the NFL and who's going to be a shadow 49er. That's the only reason I watch college football. And the college I went to, San Francisco State, Go Gators, didn't have a college football program. So they lost that in the 90s. That was post I think what happened is Larry Allen went to Sonoma State. It was in the same conference. And they're like, you know what? We got to shut down this conference because we can't go against guys like Larry Allen. That's ridiculous. And at some point right after that, that whole conference went away. So Sonoma State, rest in peace, Larry Allen, doesn't have a program. San Francisco State doesn't have a football program anymore. So yeah, I don't have a favorite college football team.
Yeah, for me, I don't either. And I don't necessarily partake on Saturday college football either because my Sunday is so involved with like football, like waking up, streaming, watching all the games, writing everything down, then watching the Niners, then doing a stream, that if I were to tell, my daughter's mother, I need Saturday as well, I don't think I'd be alive, right? So I just said, hey, listen, I'll let my guard down with college football. Not really a hard decision, in my opinion, right? And my dad went to Indiana, but that's a basketball school, so we root for Indiana, NCAA. My brother went to Ohio State, huge Ohio State Buckeyes guy, like huge, like that's a squad. But for me, I only watch college at the end of the season when I get that like dump of like everybody's tape, and I start like looking through the all 22. Like that's really, right. And I'll watch the bowl games. Like I'll watch the bowl games.
Yeah, and sometimes it's fun to watch the All-Star games, and I like to watch the games when I can during the year. But yeah, Saturdays are for the fam. I got too much going on, especially on Sundays. That's a big ask. You don't get to have a family and then watch college football and pro football.
Hey, I need Saturday as well too, and I'm gonna need multiple TVs because it's like 300 games on, right?
Right. Yeah. The other things, I need all the TVs and all the hours because it's all day and it starts even earlier than NFL football does and ends later. No. Oh man. Rip Pac-12. No more
12,
Pac-12 after dark. I guess it'll
right?
be ACC after dark though, because they're gonna have the late game still. They're not gonna get away
Right.
from that TV money at night.
Right, like, and so imagine, like, hey, I need from like noon to like midnight, like all the way like through, and I'm gonna probably be drinking beer the entire time, and you can't really bother me either. Like, like imagine saying these words to a woman and expecting to live after. Like, I don't know like how you can do this.
Phenomenal. Jason, always fun chatting it up about ball with you. Appreciate everyone jumping into the live chat, hitting us with your questions on this Q&A. I think we got to do some more Q&As when we're doing these every week. And I look forward to chatting with you again next week. Aponte, make sure you follow me on Twitter at BD Peacock. You can find Jason at Jason Aponte 2103. Subscribe to Locked On 49ers Daily with me and Eric Crocker, the Peacock and Williamson NFL show, talking about the entire league daily. Jason, hit them with all of your follows, subscriptions, where you're writing, where you're talking, where you're dancing, where you're hooping, where you at?
Niners Nation always, daily articles on there. I literally wrote an article about the article that we just spoke about the NFC West and why I disagree. So if you guys want to check that out, that's there as well too. So we're writing all there, and then Bully Ball's back next week. State of the Franchise most likely tomorrow with Brad. Sprint right option probably this week. I'm going to try to get Andrew Pasquini out of his San Francisco Giants hole. Like, he's just, when it comes down to baseball, like Andrew just really locks in. He's locked in on baseball and the Wolverhampton Wolves of soccer. Like Andrew really in the offseason, he goes in. He's up at 6 a.m., 5 a.m. your time watching soccer across the pond.
Yeah, but I don't get that at all. I can't even, there's some sports, I love golfing, but I don't watch golf. It's boring as heck. Soccer not only is boring to watch, even playing it. Give me a grass field, and it's the one sport with a ball where I'd be like, that's not even interesting for me to try to play right now. I don't even want to do that. So I'm all the way out on everything soccer related, and I'm not going to go root for a team 3,000, 6,000, I don't even know how many miles away across the pond.
I'll lock in on the World Cup. That's when that's really fun. That's fun, and I can be a casual fan, and I can just enjoy that. But there's nothing better than waking up on my side of the country for those London games. I mean, it only sucks when it's the Jaguars, though.
They literally took football and improved it.
Mm-hmm.
So why are you trying to go back to the old, worse version of football?
And you know what gets me upset too about the time difference? Because I was out there when I went to the home opener a few years ago when Jimmy G was still there. You guys get football at 10 a.m.? What, man? I was this whole 1 o'clock waiting thing is insane, man. West Coast is the best coast to watch any football. And what the worst part is, Sunday Night Football ends way past bedtime, 11:30, 12. So you can't even go out. You can totally just go out after Sunday Night Football because it ends at 8:30.
Now that I'm older and a family man, I love the West Coast timing of things. When I was younger, I was like, man, I wish I was on the East Coast. It'd be awesome when games are ending after midnight, because I used to be a night owl and stay up until 3 or 4 a.m. every single day. Not the case anymore, so I appreciate the West Coast hours for sure.
Those 49ers Sunday Night Football games are the bane of my existence, because not only am I wired the entire time and I do the stream and then I start writing, I'm up until 2, 3 in the morning scrolling, and I'm just I can't go to sleep because of the excitement of the game. Those games are the worst.
Dude, and the flip side of watching soccer in Europe is the European fans, and there's a ton of 49ers fans overseas, and I get hit up by those guys all the time, and I'm always blown away. They're like, oh, yep, I'm gonna have to set my alarm for 2 a.m. because that's when the game starts, and I'm gonna watch the game. And I'm like, dude, that is faithful right there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. I would just watch it when I wake up, and I would just turn my phone off, so I just wouldn't see anything. Sorry, man. I love it. I love you guys, but not
Monday, so they got work the next day.
Right.
So if they don't watch it in the middle of the night, then they got to wait till after work even. And you can't avoid what the score was either if you want to get surprised by what the game is. So, I mean, that is true test of who the faithful are, is those listeners over there.
You punch one of your coworkers. It's like, hey, the Niners won yesterday. Idiot! I was waiting to see this.
You almost made it. It's like 4:30. You're about ready to clock out. Go watch the DVR. Oh, all right.
All right.
Good hanging with you, Aponte. Thanks everybody for jumping in. We'll be back with you next week. Make sure you subscribe, and we will talk to you then.